Hey everybody, this is Adam Force. I'm the founder of Change Creator Media Network. And today on the Dov Baron Leadership Show, we are going to talk about the future of business and the role entrepreneurs play.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron, founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness so that you can reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. Today, we're going to be taking an insider look at learning from experts such as Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus, Seth Godin, Tony Robbins, and award-winning social entrepreneurs. As you are tuned in, remember you can also chat about the show with other listeners and even with our guests by going on Facebook to our group there, which is Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. Yes, there's a group there where you can actually chat about this. If you're a new viewer, new listener, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. Remember, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you tune into your podcasts. And we'll always need your help in staying relevant. So please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. When you do, please, again, go to that Facebook page, Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast, and tell us that you've done a review on iTunes, and maybe we'll give you a shout out live on the show. Remember, you can also catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday, all the way from Georgia to Florida, all the way to Wisconsin. We're across the United States. You can also find us on Roku TV, where there's over 100,000 subscribers. If you're a regular listener, big viewer, thank you so much for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, and with a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every show, we're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. And you can also find us on Google Home and Alexa by simply saying, play Dov Baron Podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everyone you know. All right, let's strip it down, dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, C-suite leader, a sales leader, entrepreneur, or leader in any capacity, you obviously know that learning and growth are mandatory. That is, if you want to stay at the top of your game. But how can you do it while trying to meet your commitments of home and family and executive position or entrepreneurial hustle? Well, stay tuned, because our guest today is Adam Force. Adam is the founder of Change Creator, a digital media network and premium magazine app for business and social change. Change Creator connects with the most impactful entrepreneurs on the planet who are making a difference and sharing their proven strategies. Adam Force has 15 years of experience in the publishing, digital marketing, and brand strategy world, and is the host of the Change Creator podcast, which I am honored to have been a guest on back in June of 2018. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Adam Force.
I love it. Really honored to be here, Dov. Excited to talk to you. Our last conversation was totally kick butt, man. We've had a lot of good response to it, and you inspired a lot of people, so we appreciate that, and I hope I can do the same.
Well, that's really great. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's wonderful to have been on the show. I appreciate it. And among the other superstars that you've had on there, I'm humbled, and I'm really happy to have you on here. Now, Change Creator is your second major business. What was the first?
I was in the music world for a long time, and I ran a record label. It was a strategic move when we were DJs in New York City. You know, we were in that nightlife scene, and when we had to really put our business hats on to propel that artistic approach, it was to create a business around a record label, build more credibility, and establish a foothold in the market. And we started flying in artists from all around the world and releasing their records and doing all kinds of interesting events. So that was quite an experience. But, you know, as you get older, that gets pretty exhausting.
Sure. So you were a DJ.
Yeah.
And then you got into the record business itself, which is a different world altogether. What kind of music were you DJing?
It was all house music. So we got really into the dance thing when I was younger.
What kind of house?
What's that?
What kind of house?
Just house in general. It's house music, progressive house music.
Well, there's a lot of different brands of house. My brother's a big house DJ, and I'm a huge house fan.
Well then, hey, you probably know the Carl Craigs, Frankie Knuckles, and all these guys around the block. And, you know, they've really been the root of a lot of that stuff, and it's evolved over the years.
My brother used to play Money Pennies in the UK and Ibiza as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a great industry, and there's definitely a major range in the kinds of music. But, you know, you get caught up in the thrill of nightlife when you're younger. You want to be the artist, and I love the idea of creation. So just like I love creating businesses, I like creating music. So the record label was a logical next step to get into the actual business side of it in that sense.
Yeah, and so often, you know, DJs are artists. I mean, people think it's about spinning records. It's so much more than that. But they're artists, and unfortunately, many of them don't have that way to transition into a business world and a business life of that. You know, they really get stuck. And never really progress. I just saw that, what's his name? Norman, Fatboy Slim. Fatboy Slim just did a great set at the Brighton Tower, in this new Brighton Tower. It was an absolutely amazing house set. For those of us who are house fans, it was just awesome. And that was last week as we record this. And, you know, and the guy still so got it, but it's business. It's understanding how, you know, the guys who've done really well are the guys who've translated spinning it used to be records, but spinning all the way to now becoming a business and how to move that into the business mode. The change creator world is what you're doing in that seems to be a very different world than the world of music and even music business. Is it different, or do you see it as the same? And if so, what are the connections?
That's actually an interesting question. So it is very different on the surface of what it is and the industry that you're in, but it's also very much the same in the fact that when you put your business hat on, you have to do entrepreneurial things, right? So you do have to think about revenue streams, and you have to think about your audience, and you have to think about how you're actually going to model something to become profitable. So there is the marketing side, the operations side, and then I think most importantly, the common denominator is your networking. You know, you really need to build relationships. The only way we did anything in that space, and the most valuable thing we're doing with Change Creator, is building really smart relationships.
Mm-hmm. Now, Change Creator, I read that it was founded on the idea of creating a better future through the way that we live and work. Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, so I will confidently say that, you know, business is changing right now. Like, just like everything's always changing and evolving. But I think we're at a very important point in time where there's a dramatic shift in how people are seeing the world, you know, thanks to technology, more transparency, more discussion, more, you know, information, sometimes misinformation, sometimes good information, whatever it might be. But as you've noticed with some of the data, you know, the younger generations are becoming more and more socially conscious. And I think this is a reaction to what's going on in the world. The conditions of the world are kind of making people say, well, wait a minute, you know, this is because it's a profit-driven business and all things like that. So there is a major transition happening. And so we really are changing the way we see this tool, this business tool, and what its purpose is. And the way we live is kind of becoming synergistic with that. So rather than just building a life where you have a career and a job, you're building this life that is your career, and it is actually doing something meaningful. So it's not like you go to your 9 to 5 and then you do something philanthropic on the side. It's
Right.
becoming like a one harmonious act, right? And so the changing the way we live and work is changing how we think about business, how we approach it, and the decisions we make, right? And then how we live is how we think about those things as well. I mean, part of being a successful entrepreneur is the conscious decisions we make in our everyday lifestyle too. So it all has to work together holistically, really.
So how, from your perspective, how does Change Creator make a difference in someone's life?
Yeah, so we operate on 3 principles, and my whole objective, because when I started this, it was, well, there was no information about becoming an entrepreneur that's really putting a top priority on social profit, we'll call it, right? And it was really focused on the economic side, which is financial profit. And so to me, I was like, well, there's no magazines, there was no university initiatives. You know, today there's major universities that are talking about it. It's evolved quickly because it's becoming more important now. But I think that for me, it's just been a major transition. And so I think that, you know what, I'm kind of losing my thought on that a little bit. What was your question again?
How does Change Creator impact or
Oh,
improve?
yes. So the 3 principles that my intro was getting to was, we want to make sure that we're giving mentorship. This is one of the weakest points for the younger entrepreneurs is, of course, capital. That's always something that they struggle with, but mentorship and lack of experience. Okay. So the mentorship factor was something that I needed. I started talking to these people to get insights about, well, you're actually doing this, but how are you doing it? And it's not just, I want to hear your success story. It's, well, how did you build these partnerships? Why did you build these partnerships? You know, who did you talk to? How to think about the business model? And as I started talking to those folks, I wanted to share those insights, because in my mind, the more people we have that are operating business this way, then the more we have like a global, benefit, right? So it's kind of really shifting the way we do it. And you can certainly shift what people are doing now, but also those younger generation are key, right? So really getting in front of them early on and helping them build it from day one. And that's just changing the overall society's culture of how they think about business. So the way we help is, we operate based on access. That means low price point. It means making it everywhere available to you, this information in your pocket, on your desktop. So we went digital first, mobile first. So accessibility was a key point. Our whole thing is only $3.99 a month at the end of the day. And then the other thing is engagement. We wanted to make sure that we had a style that wasn't just like pumping out a blog, right? So we've built this premium app where we can keep a magazine experience that will help the educational process. So it's not just about having magazine integrity and design. It's actually about drawing someone's eye to certain key points and using design in a functional way and to give it an engaging experience. Because why do people love magazines? Because they're entertaining, they're engaging, they're designed in a fun way. So we didn't want to lose the integrity of that. So we kept that from an engagement standpoint. So that's another way that we're doing it. And then, of course, it's just the usability. We want the content to be functional, tactical. So like I said, we talk to the Muhammad Yunuses of the world and the Tony Robbins, and we ask them questions that we think that these entrepreneurs will want to know. And we're trying to dig deep and say, now here's your mentorship at a very low cost.
So how did you get started in this?
Well, I was in media for 10 years with WebMD. I was director of strategic marketing. And so media is kind of my background. It's my wheelhouse. And, when I started thinking about becoming an entrepreneur who's doing something more meaningful for me, it was this, epiphany of, well, hey, there was a moment where I just said to myself, is this what I want to be doing 10 years from now, this corporate lifestyle? It wasn't a bad thing. I enjoyed my work at WebMD, but it wasn't who I wanted to be forever, right? So I got a lot of experience out of it. And so when I finally decided that if I'm going to change that outcome, I need to start taking certain actions now, right? So I started.
Just so our viewers, our listeners have a background. How long were you with MD, and what was your function there?
So I was with WebMD for 10 years, and I went through a number of roles, but my primary role when I ended was director of strategic marketing. So large clients came in. It could be, Walmart, Walgreens, Tylenol, Target, and they want to get in front of a healthcare audience for their pharmacy or whatever it might be. I was the guy that would put together the digital strategy and say, hey, you're going to spend X millions of dollars or whatever it might be. Here's your objective. Here's the strategy to actually help people understand that educational part or build that brand awareness. And then we roll out that strategy. So that was my job.
So you were a corporate guy who clearly understood the digital world and digital marketing and getting it out there. And then you took that background and that knowledge and turned it into something which was change creator. But why that?
Yeah,
that background that you had from WebMD and that, that experience that you had, you could have gone in a million different directions.
It's true. I always like the publication side of the business. We did have a magazine, website, all these digital assets, and I understand how all that works. And I understand how to scale it into something substantial. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that it is so scalable, right? It can impact so many people. So to me, I heard about someone else doing a magazine, and I was familiar with some other digital assets, and I know the app space is obviously a growing space. And so I did my research, and for me, it was just, hey, this is, again, the accessible, engaging, and usable way I can approach what I'm trying to do. I could take these, this mentorship concept, and let's call it generation to generation learning, and I can actually really scale it to people in a very functional way. So that made it easy. So it's not about building a school and charging high prices. It's $3.99 a month, and I'm going to give you $1 million of mentorship every month, right?
Right. So how did you decide that or recognize that it was mentorship specifically that was missing?
That is through, market research. So most important thing you could do with anything is always talk to your potential customers. So talking to people, and then of course it always starts with data. Coming from my WebMD background, I always look at what are the attitudes and behaviors of people in this space, right? So there's plenty of millennial and Gen Z surveys and information, whether it's from Deloitte, Nielsen, Gallup, all that stuff. Yeah. I start there, and then I try to talk to people. And if I could talk up to, even if you guys listen, you could talk to 10 people, maybe 15, and you just ask them for 20 minutes of their time, buy them a cup of coffee, whatever it might be, do it over. I've done it digitally. But man, if you can just ask a few key questions around your space and just have a natural conversation, the insights are the most valuable thing you're ever going to get. So what I found is that the conversations I had and the data that I read, they aligned. And I was able to also associate and relate because it's the mentorship that I was lacking. So I'm like, okay, This is the home run in my mind.
Interesting. I think Adam, from our conversation, me being on your show, that I'm all about purpose-driven leaders, purpose-driven organizations, purpose-driven cultures, creating purpose-driven companies. And purpose has a lot of different ways for people to understand it. But if we don't have purpose, we don't have impact, or it's not true. We have impact, but we may not be having the kind of impact we want.
Yeah.
And my definition, my belief, it's not the truth. My belief, my definition of impact is the ability to make, and this is on our websites and places, but it's the ability to make somebody believe something about themselves that they previously thought was impossible.
Sure.
Who did that for you? Who had the impact on you that allowed you to see something that you previously held as impossible as suddenly being possible?
That's interesting. And it's not always a famous person, right? So one of the people that have really impacted me, and I just did a second interview with him to follow up because I really enjoyed his story so much, is Jake Orak. He's a young guy. He's probably close to my age, but he has a very powerful story. And I'll just give it to you in a nutshell and why it impacted me. he basically was out of school in the US, and he was doing the typical routine of looking for a job. And he has a engineering background of some kind, if I remember correctly. And so he was able to get, a job here that was, paying well and all that kind of stuff. But an opportunity came up in Vietnam where he would only make like $500 a month doing some kind of like bag design work and learning how to do this design stuff. So, and he really loved that idea. So he rolled the dice and he went out to Vietnam, which to me is like, wow, that takes courage, right? You're leaving your family and friends, you're going for a no pay opportunity, and it's really not what your background is essentially, and you're just winging it. And so it actually turned into something more interesting. So quickly put, he went on a motorcycle ride on holiday. He ran into these artisanal little cultural areas where these like villages were. And they had amazing design work, right, that they did by hand. And they were getting pushed out by industry and shut down because they couldn't sell stuff. And it was their population was just like going away in a sense. And so one of the things he came up with was, well, maybe I can design bags and gear and things like that using their stuff. And today he has a company called Ethnotech. They went through a lot of amazing challenges. They overcame them, and they're doing really good stuff right now. So Ethnotech is, to me, someone who wanted to do something meaningful. He was willing to explore and put himself out there. And with a little bit of persistence and patience and tears, blood, sweat, and tears, he made something special and unique. And I love his story. So that's it in a nutshell. That inspired me.
I get that it inspired you, but what did it make you believe that you previously thought was impossible?
Just the ability to do something that is completely unique. So to me, the idea of creation from scratch, of doing something that is unknown to you, right? So building something that you can have a vision and an idea of, but it seems like it's so far reaching that it's not possible. If someone told me, Adam, go to Vietnam, start working, and you'll create this fabric business working with these, small villages of artisans. And it's like, to me, that's crazy. But he was able to take the risk and pull something, manifest this incredible business. So to me, I feel like that shows me that anything is possible.
Very cool. So what would you say is if you had to say, here's the goal of the outcome of the impact of Change Creator, what do you think it is? Would you say that you want it to be?
Yeah, it is about creating smart leaders, right? So we just did a Seth Godin edition. It was Leadership of Tomorrow. And it is kind of leaning into this. And, I know you focus on leadership, so we'll just talk about that for a second. It is about helping people through this transition in business that we talked about. And so to me, it is, how do you operate in a sense where not only you're operating with a purpose yourself, but that translates to the employees you have as a motivating factor. And as a great leader, you are starting to think beyond your company, right? You're thinking towards the people and the environment that we live in. So now there's a holistic approach. To me, again, that's a great leader. You're showing appreciation not only for the people that work for you, but for anyone that your company touches, right? So I think there's these really important factors of it always comes down to just how we understand what we're doing and how we think about it so that we make smart decisions. And for me, by exposing people to all these amazing entrepreneurs who are doing this, I want to inspire them to be those kinds of leaders.
So for those who don't know, tell us what Change Creator is. Because I said in the introduction that, part of it is that it's a podcast, but that's not it. That's just an element of it. So for somebody who's like, okay, I never heard of this, what the hell is it?
Right. Yeah, it's a network, right? So it's a publishing and tech network. We use technology and we use the power of content publication in order to educate. So I do like to think of us as an educational platform. And so this is essentially a tool where we like to say we're redefining good business. And so it becomes a tool that is highly accessible, that you can learn from the most impressive and impactful entrepreneurs in the world. So we're going to continue to expand on this network, meaning it's not just about this magazine. It's not just about, to your point, the podcast. It's about tapping into the network, and it's about expanding that offer so that you can have a certain experience. So for example, this fall, we'll be having a signature course beta test, right? So that's going to come out, but it's going to be on a very foundational topic that's going to be important as a starting point, not only for the entrepreneur that's starting out, but for someone who has a business and needs to revamp their story. It is about storytelling and getting people on your side with your story, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to be expanding into that. And then we're also going to be evolving the app to do different functions and offers. Again, everything with our eye on how people learn and how we make it more effective for them in their process. So to me, it is an educational platform to network, learn, and become that leader that you hope to be, having that impact. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, because I'm just thinking about it from the point of view of somebody who doesn't know, somebody who has no idea what it is.
Yeah.
An executive, for instance, who sure. Maybe is not so eloquent and elegant in technology, who right. maybe is a Gen Xer or a baby boomer, meaning that yeah. person is in their late 40s plus, and they're sure. saying, this sounds interesting, but, where the hell, what the hell am I doing with this thing? I don't know what it is, right? I'm supposed yeah. to be able to get it on my phone. What is it? I think a lot of these things can be very confusing for people yeah. who have not grown up digital.
Sure.
You're not a kid yourself, but you've grown up digital for sure.
Yeah, and you're right. And it's interesting because we do get depending on the message we put out, like when we promote Tony Robbins and his message, we get a lot of the 45 to 56-year-old folks, the boomers, right? And the Gen X's. And they tend to be the ones sometimes that have a problem getting into the app and, stuff like that. So you are spot on. That happens. And what it really is, again, leaning into technology, it's a way for you to get information in an accessible fashion. So Change Creator it's a publication, just like if you were reading Inc. magazine, but it's about being everywhere in different formats. And the reason is people like to learn in different ways. Not everyone wants to just sit down and read the magazine, right? So it is about having that campaign concept. If it's 10 lessons from Tony Robbins, how do we do that on the podcast? How do we do it on the website? How do we do it on the magazine? And we distribute it like that. Then we have a course that's a little bit more intimate for people, and we teach them about these lessons and we dig deeper.
Right.
Some people want to spend a few bucks, get the information. Others want to start getting more involved training. Others will want like actual one-on-one mentorship. So sure. The idea is to be an informational platform that offers this focused content. I mean, there is no other platform right now where you're going to find marketing tips from Russell Brunson one day, right? Who's the founder of ClickFunnels. And then the next day hear from a Nobel Peace Prize winner like Muhammad Yunus. It's a unique combination of things. But what we're trying to do is help people, again, get involved with more of an impact, social profit-based business. And it's interesting because we get a lot of people who have literally reached out to me. They're like, well, I've been in X, Y, and Z space for 10 years, but I'm not happy. I don't feel like I've done anything with my life, Sure. And so when they're looking for that, it's like, yeah, like we get that. We call it the frustrated employee, right? And so we do appeal to that boomer generation because they have the funds now because they worked for years, and they really have the motivation because they're frustrated and they feel like they haven't done much. And Absolutely. So they're ready to make a change, and they're just looking for a support system. And that's what we are. We are a support system.
What's, in doing this and highlighting these experts, people you've named and I named, what's been the highlight for you so far?
Oh, that's interesting. I think it's Seth Godin's discussion. That was an interesting story. And then, so I reached out to him, I don't know, a year ago, and he's like, sorry, I don't have time for this. That happens too, guys, right? And then, when the timing is everything. You gotta, like, this is part of the strategy, everybody. So you want influencers connecting with your brand. You got to hit them at the right time, the right relevancy. And when I say timing, it's not just about the right time in their place, the right time for you, right? Like, is your brand ready to have someone like that, right?
Right.
So about a year later, I reached out more recently, and he got back to my email within 5 minutes. I had a different positioning, right, in my email, because now it's a year later. We've accomplished more. We've done more. And so he got back to me in 5 minutes, and I was like, whoa. And so I email him back, hey. And he's like, well, how about we do the interview in an hour? I was like, okay, let's jump onto it, man. So I was like, hey, you seem a little, you're ready to go. He's like, hey, no time like the present, right? And I was like, yes, I love this guy. He talks about, being an artist as an entrepreneur and not trying to appeal to everybody and getting sucked into mass marketing, because what that does is it makes you average, right? And he does talk about being a leader today that is an artist and is somebody that believes in what they're doing and is looking to actually make a difference with their actions. So we aligned very well. And that's why I reached out to him to talk about leadership.
That's very cool.
Dov, I'll add one more thing based on our last conversation, if you don't mind. There is something for those Fortune 500 leaders and stuff like that. So, our platform is informational for those consumers, right, that we talked about. But at the same time, we work with businesses as well, because part of our mission, again, is to scale social initiatives. And so that's not just from the entrepreneurial side. We do, and we use our experience to do content strategies for corporations and companies that have social initiatives, and we help them develop their social equity.
So, obviously you've gone through considerable evolution yourself and what you're doing in your business. What's one thing that you did you likely thought was good at the time of doing it, that now looking back you realize, Jesus, that blocked me, that was actually in the way?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, I think that would be our first iteration of our pitch deck. We have, we went through a part of our process as a growing startup is we're interested in raising capital, guys. Like, we're in the media world. We need capital to operate at the scale that our vision is planned. Okay. We're not just trying to grow over the next 10 years. So, we want to move quickly. And so as we approach that, we did put together a pitch deck, and listen, we all have to start somewhere, right? So that's part of it. We talked to people, blah, 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 all these things. We realized the first one, which I sent to like Ariana Huffington, right? And now I'm like, wait a minute, I wish I did not send that to her. But you live, you learn, and it's okay. It's what's meant to be at the time. And so anyway, what happened was we learned, well, maybe we're going to be more attractive. We got some advisors on board. Now we have an advisory board in the pitch deck. We actually interviewed and used our podcast as a hook for people who have raised big dollars, right? And then I got in conversation with them, and I got them to be an advisor for us, right? An informal advisor. You don't always have to give equity. People will help you. So we had advisory on shaping the pitch deck there. And so long story short, we're probably on our 20th iteration of this thing now. Now we've gone from 20 slides to 12 slides. We're punchy. Our positioning is better. And we just had some incredible investor meetings in New York. So we're excited.
That's cool. What's something that others might look at you and think you do with great ease that actually is not great ease or was not great ease? So something that, because a lot of time we see people do things like, oh, it's so easy for you, but they have no idea what the truth is. And I always think it's an important message for leaders in anything to get, because I think that we live in a comparative world. We like to look at others and we go, oh my God, it's so easy for Fred to do that, or it's so easy for Adam to do this. When in truth, that thing that looks easy might be easy now, but it might have been very hard at one time, or it might still be difficult. What is that for you?
I think that would be essentially building these magazines. I mean, that's obviously a big part of our brand, and it was a strategic move on our end because it builds our brand equity, right? We have this face to the brand, which now has celebrity appeal. Listen, Tony Robbins isn't talking to us if we don't have the magazine. So that was a strategic play on our end. But building a magazine, I will tell you guys, listen, it takes thousands of dollars. You got writers, you've got editors, you've got design, you got coordination. I mean, the first time I ever put together, I was like, so how do I do a content plan for a magazine? I literally was reading books about it, researching it, talking to people. And it was really hard and very, very stressful. And that's why we started initially doing it every other month. And then we evolved to monthly, right? As you get your processes in place. And it is still hard. And this is one reason is because we're going monthly now. But it takes a lot of work, and I am a design fanatic. So everything has to be as perfect as possible, right? Mm-hmm. And so to me, I think that is one of the most difficult parts of it. You get better at it, so you're efficient, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. And you have to realize when you're in a startup business, especially as a leader, you have to be very sensitive what you're putting energy into. Is what is the purpose of what you're doing right now? And is there a real return for you? Because you only have so much energy. You only have so many hours in the day. So you have to be very smart. And it's the most valuable commodity. Reason being, you can't get more time.
That is very true. You're a married man?
I am a married man. I've got a lovely wife.
You have any little ones?
Not yet. I think that's down the road.
Right. And the reason I ask you is because, very often executives and certainly entrepreneurs, and I think that people don't recognize the amount of time goes in. So in total transparency and honesty, how many hours a week are you putting in?
Let's see. So how do I do my math? Let's just round this up. So we got 5, 10. Yeah, I would say at least maybe 80 to 85
right.
a week.
And I think this is an important lesson because we as you know, this show is focused on Fortune 500 listeners, but the truth of the matter is we have a very lot of entrepreneurs and a very lot of people who are transitioning from a corporate world into an entrepreneurial world.
Right.
And many, many years ago, a friend of mine invited me to speak for an MLM, for a multi-level marketing company. I was like, yeah, you don't want me to speak. And he goes, well, I said, I'm not going to say good things. Yeah. And he goes, actually, I do want you to speak because I want that. And I said, okay. And I went up and spoke and I said, if you are joining this MLM because you want to have freedom to be able to take your kids to school and you want to take your kids to see your kids game and the play and all the rest of it, and you can't do that in your corporate job, that's great. But let me just fill you in. If you're going to go into MLM, it's an entrepreneurial business. And what does that mean? It means there are 365 work days in a year, and about 17 to 19 of those hours of every single day are work hours. So the fact that you're at Christmas lunch and your sister brought a friend, you are in front of a prospect. And people are like, oh my God. And I said, now there are other people who make millions of dollars in MLMs. Of course there are. Absolutely. Yeah. But they understand it's a business. And if you're going to enter into the entrepreneurial world, you are not going to be doing 35, 40 hours a week. And you're not going to be making the same money. You're probably working for about half of what you because you're working not for the money, but for the dream and the vision and something else. And I love and I appreciate you sharing with us that you're putting in the 80, 85 hours a week. Of course, that's not a lifelong dream or a lifelong goal to be working that. But the understanding is that there's a driver there that is beyond the paycheck. Yeah. And I think this is a very important thing for everybody to get a grip on.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
The company you've built, Change Creator, and all the outlets for that are essentially about growth, development, etc. And as I said, the opening, if you're going to be a great leader, you've got to keep growing, and that's not an option. And the greatest leaders I've ever met in doing what I do for 34 years and working with some extraordinary individuals and having personally made friends with lots of very, very high profile individuals, I can tell you that every one of them is dedicated to their growth. What is it about yourself that you're still working on, Adam?
My money mindset, actually, I have some, because I'm in this activist and social impact, servitude mindset. I tend to have a roadblock in my mind when it comes to making money, and it's easy for an entrepreneur to devalue what they offer, right? Should I charge that B2B client 30 grand for these services and what we're offering them? You tend to want to we'll do a service trade partnership. It's mutually beneficial, and you really need to put a business hat on. And so for me, the past year has been a very big focus on my own professional development to have a money mindset. And I'm not saying that in a greedy way, but I can't impact anybody's life and get this information out there and do good if I don't play by the rules of our economy, which is you need fuel for the engine, right? So that is the money factor. You don't have it, you don't have a business, and I'm not trying to shut down the business. So I recognize some of those things, and that's one big one that I work on and I get mentorship on.
And that's the point that I'm trying to have everybody grasp, is that I don't get who you are. As I said, I've worked with billionaires.
Yeah.
I work with incredibly successful people, athletes, actors, people in the entertainment world, as well as CEOs and high-level entrepreneurs. And I got some really bad news for you. If you're watching and listening to this, there is no there. No. You will never arrive. And the minute you think you've arrived, you're back at the beginning. There is no there. And the greatest, most successful, most impactful and purpose-driven leaders understand that. They have mentors, as Adam was just talking about. They hire me. They hire people like Adam to come and work with them and help them to go to the next level. And the best analogy I can give for you that is this, and it's the one that I use on the platform when I speak about, is let's imagine it's the year 2000 or around there. And I'll ask you, Adam, out loud, who is the best golfer in the world? Around 2000.
All I can think about is Tiger Woods.
Exactly. That's the name that comes to mind, right? Tiger Woods. Best golfer in the world. How many coaches does Tiger Woods at that time have for golfing? How many coaches and mentors does he have?
Probably
the answer is 5.
Yeah, exactly.
He had 5. Now, he was the best golfer in the world, and he had 5 coaches who were not as good as him. They were not wearing the green jacket. They were not being the best in the world, but they all had something that he didn't have that collectively, synergistically created the greatest golfer in the world. And people go, oh, yeah, I get that. Yeah, the best understand, recognize that they cannot ease off on their game just because they got the green jacket, just because they got the crown, just because they got the award. They are constantly working. And then I say to people, does that make sense? And they go, yeah. And I go, now tell me something, what you remember about Tiger Woods of late. And people go, didn't he go through a horrible divorce? And I go, yes. Yeah. And how many coaches and mentors did he have for relationship? And they go, I don't know. And I said, well, by his result, I will tell you, 0.
Yeah, that's a great point.
There's your example. And this is why we all need things like Change Creator. That's why we all need mentors. That's why we all need these resources to tap into, because nobody is there. And you have got to get that. And the minute you think you're there, you're just a smart ass who knows nothing and who's going to fall on their ass in order to wake up and go, oh, duh. How do I know? Because in 1990, I was incredibly successful. I was traveling the world speaking and, newspapers, magazines, interviews, all those things. And then I fell on my head. Fell 120 feet, got smashed to pieces. And guess what I realized? I knew nothing.
Exactly.
Not because I fell on my head. I knew nothing, which made me realize I knew nothing. Right?
100%.
Made me realize it. It wasn't that suddenly it all leaked out of my head with the blood and the gore. It's that realization that you've got to keep growing. And that is what you have designed Change Creator for, is for people to grasp that there is no end. And we've got
100%. You're 100% right. And you have to invest in yourself. And I always say, your external growth is dependent on your internal growth, and the internal growth process is a lifelong journey, right? I mean, It is so important. The most successful people in the world are always reading books, and they always have mentors. And listen, You want to get Russell Brunson to mentor you? Great. He's going to charge you $5,000 an hour for you to talk with him, okay, and get his advice. And that's why we create this process where it's, yes, you need that mentorship for forever. Let's put it in your pocket, access anytime, and I'm going to give it to you for far cheaper than talking to him directly. So this is what we're trying to accomplish with the platform. So to your point, it's educational. It is ongoing mentorship. And I sometimes say it's a mentor in your pocket. I mean, that's what this is. Yeah. But it's mentorship around a very specific trend, right? It's where the future is going with business. And so the reason you need something like this is not because it's cool to have a magazine or an app. That's not what it's about. It's about having access to where the future of business is going and staying on trend, connecting with the right people, learning from the people who are doing it the right way. So there's nothing more valuable than that, really.
Right. Now, obviously, as I said, you're building a business here and you're putting in all those hours. However, you are human, as are we all. What's your guilty pleasure?
The beach. Yeah, I mean, I live in Miami and I work every weekend too. That's where part of those 85 hours. I mean, the past, I don't even know how long now, years, but I work every Saturday and Sunday. And the way I shape it for people to still get my guilty pleasures, right? Besides this desserts at night, is I usually will work on a weekend, for example, only till about 1 or 2. Then it's family time after that, right? So but I'm waking up, don't forget, I'm not waking up at 9 a.m. I'm waking up at 5 or 4:30, sure. And I'm working a 10-hour day, even when I stop at 2 o'clock. And then it's go to the beach, go have some drinks, hang out with my wife. And I spend as much time as I can with her. You know, she's my partner and we like to hang out together. And when she's here, it's going to be, Adam, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? You know, let's go do something. So my guilty pleasure is getting out to the beach, relaxing. It's, for me, it's therapeutic.
Very cool. So as we close up, I would like to ask you, what is it, if you got to give one piece of practical advice to our listeners, our viewers, that they could go put in action, preferably in the next 24 hours, but certainly within the next few work days, what is it that you would say to them, want them to go do, not think about, but actually do?
Let me just think about that for a second. So in the next 24 hours, that means something very functional and not philosophical. I would say to, geez, Dov, you put me on the spot here with this.
That is what we do here.
That is what we do. Okay.
Hence, full Monty.
Okay. I have something for you. In the next 24 hours, I would highly, highly recommend you take 10 minutes for yourself to sit in the most quiet and peaceful place where you can just focus on your breathing in and out. Take that time for yourself. And it's going to be really hard. It's going to be so hard because your mind's going to be going 100 miles an hour. But if you continue that practice, just like wiping fog from the window, it'll get clearer and clearer. I will tell you right now, it is a magical 10 minutes every day because the outcome will be you have a way and an outlet to calm your mind. When I work a lot every day, sometimes I catch myself, I'm so jacked up, man. You know, like I'll be done with work and at night I'm with my wife. I'm like, I'm going 100 miles an hour. You know, sometimes you get so jacked up, you can't even think clearly anymore. So having a process of meditation is really valuable to keeping focus and thinking clearly. And it'll be a great preparation tool for interviews like this too.
Fabulous. Well, thank you, Adam. It's been a pleasure and an honor having you with us. Please tell our viewers, our listeners, where they can find out more about you, more about Change Creator, about all the things that you do and all the resources that you offer.
Absolutely. Very simple, guys. Changecreator.com. You can just stop by there. We have all of our resources. Use the contact form, reach out, get on the mailing list. If you reply to our emails, I will personally get back to you. We love to help and we will extend ourselves as much as we can. But there's a lot of resources there. Again, low barrier access, low price points. We're trying to do the best we can to give you the tools you need.
Fabulous. Well, I want to thank you. It's been a pleasure and honor having you here. Just totally enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And as always, we want to thank you and want to thank our listeners. And I hope you'll stay with us to the end. I want to encourage everybody to go to changecreator.com. Of course, we will put that in the show notes too. Again, remember, you can go chat about this show, about any of our past shows by simply going to Facebook, to the new Facebook group, which is the Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Podcast on Facebook. Go chat about the show. As you know, as I say to you every single time, Please don't just listen or watch. Actually put it in action. Go take some action on it. And then come back onto that group on Facebook and tell us what you got out of the show. Tell us what you're going to go do with it. Remember, we always need your help in staying relevant. So please get yourself over to iTunes and rate and review the show. We need those. Those help us enormously. Right, Adam?
Absolutely. Can't express that enough, Dov.
Exactly. And remember, the research consistently shows that the biggest challenges facing even the most successful companies can be somewhat counterintuitive, in that these fast-growing companies often hit a point where they realize they're spending a fortune attracting, training, and developing talent, but only have them leaving them at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing in training and developing your talent, only have them leave you before you get a return on your investment, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide you with the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Also, remember to stop by the Matrix. It's matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. Matrix like the movie. You don't need the triple W's. Just matrix.fullmontyleadership.com and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool so you can assess yourself on leadership. It's valued at $197. You get it absolutely free for being a regular viewer, listener on our show. Again, you can catch us on Alexa. You can catch us on Google Home. Simply say, play Dov Baron Podcast. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everyone you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how you need another mentor, another level of growth, because there is no there. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.